Hi, I'd like to welcome my listeners at Manifest with Flower Essences. Today we have a very special Q&A session with Warren Bellows, co-author of the book Floral Acupuncture. On behalf of Manifest with Flower Essences, I would like to extend a warm welcome. Hi, Warren.
Hi, Megan.
To start off, could you tell us a little bit about your background as it relates to floral acupuncture?
Well, in terms of my background, the two obviously most important things would be, well, what about flower essences and what about acupuncture? I mean, how those come together in my own life. I was a gardener at the Findhorn Foundation. This is in 1975, I guess it was 75, 76, and it's a community in Scotland, which maybe your listeners know about, maybe they don't. It was a community that was really connected to the nature spirits and working in conjunction with the nature spirits um, to create food for one, but also to create a better world while humans and the nature spirits are working together. That was sort of an awkward statement. But what happened there is I was given someone gave me this book on Dr. Bach on the flower essences, the yellow covered book, and a case of the 38 flower essences. And I said, well, this is sort of interesting. And they told me what the flower essences were. And at that particular time, I had just broken up, and I was in a very depressed state, having broken up in a relationship. And so I started looking at the book, and I said, well, I'm not going to be able to read this to see what kind of flower essence I need. So I decided instead of reading the whole book, I'd just take my pendulum, and I'd do my little pendulum, and I went over all the remedies, and the one that really stood out from the pendulum point of view was gorse. Gorse for deep, dark depression, hopelessness, which was exactly what I was feeling. And I said, well, this is interesting. So I took 5 drops of gorse under my tongue, and it was probably a total of 10 seconds. And all of a sudden, it was like someone turned the lights on in my head. And I just started laughing, and I went, holy Moses, what was that? And realized that this flower essence of Dr. Bach was something that was actually very significant, at least for me. And so I studied, that was sort of my introduction into the healing world, was through the Bach flower essences. I learned, after that I learned Touch for Health, and I got into homeopathy and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that was the flower essence part. Go forward to probably in the 80s, 82, 83. I won't go into the long story, but I found out about acupuncture, and I was totally surprised that you could actually study acupuncture in the United States at that time. It just wasn't heard of. And the only acupuncturist in my state I happened to meet at a lecture, and the only acupuncturist I was in the state of Maine lived 5 minutes from me. And so I said, well, let me see what this is like. And so I did some acupuncture treatments with her. And I remember the first treatment, as I exposed myself here, I felt like I didn't have anything wrong with me particularly, but I felt like my mind is one place, my emotions were someplace else, my body was someplace else, that had all the parts, but they weren't working together as a unit. And I was telling her, this acupuncturist, and I said, does that make any sense? And she said, absolutely, it makes sense. And so she did a treatment, just a few needles. And while she was doing the treatment, I could feel all the parts come together. Again, it was like the flower essence. It was almost an immediate response. And the one thing that I have learned is that, if it's a healing modality that's really important for me, I usually have a profound experience with that healing modality. And so both of those things, acupuncture and the flower essences, were very powerful experiences for me. And I chose to study acupuncture, and I've been doing acupuncture probably now for 30 years. And the flower essences have always been in the background in my cabinet. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. That's a very fascinating story. And I think it resonates a lot with our listeners because I think all of us, when we first tried flower essences, have this story of, this unbelievable moment of almost this, inspired or intuitive sense of, okay, this works. And I love how you relate it to acupuncture. So that kind of leads me to the next question of how did you come to collaborate with Deborah Craden to create this groundbreaking new modality? I mean, both of you pioneered this new way of combining flower essences and acupuncture. I don't think it's been done before. So,
No, no, it's never been done before. And this is the funny part. Is well, I live in Sebastopol. I'm in Northern California, an hour north of San Francisco, and I get a phone call from Deborah, who I didn't know about, and she lives at that moment. She was living in Sebastopol, and she called me up and she said, my name's Deborah, and I was at Findhorn also, and we found out that she was in Findhorn probably the year after I left. So she was in Findhorn and very much attached to Findhorn, and she has been she studied the flower essence repertoire and worked with the FES people, the Flower Essence Society,
mm-hmm.
and has been a practitioner of it at that time, probably for about 12, 15 years. And she told me, she says, well, I've always believed that there's something about the acupuncture meridian system that could be a vehicle and being used in concert with flower essences. And I went, oh, that's an interesting idea. I never even thought of that. And she was at that time making her own flower essences. She had lived in Hawaii. She had her own Hawaiian flower essences. She also now has gem elixirs and light elixirs. She's an alchemist. But so she said, would you mind doing some research with this idea? And I said, no problem. So I went and met her, and we would meet once a week for probably 6 months or so. And we went through a lot of her flower essences from Hawaii. And she would talk about the flower essence that she was working with.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I'd listen to that, and then I would ask her, I said, well, if someone really needed that, could you just play the person? Could you role play for me? Just be that person coming in that needs this particular flower essence.
Mm-hmm.
So I can think from an acupuncture point of view, diagnostically. And so we did that, and we sort of played with that. So I say, well, if I thought someone like that, and that was their problem, and this is what the flower essence does, I said, I would think about these points. And then we would put their flower essence on several different points that I had come up with. What was interesting was that there was, a lot of points we put them on. It was like, oh, that's sort of interesting, but no big deal. But then we put it on the point, the real point, the point where it really was in concert and resonance
Mm-hmm.
with the flower essence. And it was like, holy Moses. And you could just feel your whole body just like blasting open. Blasting is probably a little bit too extreme, but feeling that the whole system, your whole system was just like opening up. And so we did that for quite a while, and we discovered that she and I both had a similar capability. We had a matching capability of knowing when the right acupuncture point was resonating with the particular flower essence. So that again was interesting information. I mean, if someone said, no, why don't you match the energy of the flower essence with acupuncture point, I'd say, well, I wouldn't have any idea how to even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I did. I did have an idea, and we discovered it, and sort of backed into it. So we got to a certain point, and Deborah says, we really should, instead of just fooling around with my flower essence, we should actually do something for the world, or for the public at large that's already, using the Bach flower essences, which we both know. Let's use the Bach flower essence. It's already a known repertoire. And then why don't we find the acupuncture points that relate to them? I said, well, let's do that. So we started with maybe 5 of the flower essences, starting, with agrimony and aspen and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we started, and she would talk about the flower essence. She'd talk about the flower. I would then talk about the acupuncture points and what they mean, and then we'd start looking for the synthesis of what is that. If you put those things together, what would that really look like and mean? And the other question underneath was, why is this working? It was a huge question. I didn't understand why it was working. I didn't have any kind of theoretical framework for that to answer that question. But anyway, we put out the 5 flower essences, and then she's had experience in writing a book. She put those things together, and we sent out a proposal to Celestial Arts, which is now no longer around in Berkeley. And I said, I can't believe anyone would really care about this information. I mean, this is so esoteric. Anyway, Celestial Arts wrote back and said, yes, we want to do this. Definitely, we want to do this. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, holy shit, what are we going to do now? So we carried on with our research and ended up writing the book and put it out there. Sort of based on our own experience. I would work with my clients and experiment with what we were learning, but it wasn't like we did 5-10 years of experimentation and then wrote the book. It was just this sure knowledge that we knew what this was.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And it's very bold.
I think it's fantastic that you both put the book together because that's how I actually found out about it. I started reading the book, and within the first few pages, it really resonated with me, and I thought, I can't believe somebody thought of this, because I've had great success with flower essences, and I've had great success with acupuncture, and I think the combination of the two is really something that I think that would resonate with a lot of people. I think there is some sort of synergetic mechanism, and maybe you could tell us more about some of the benefits that you've seen in yourself and in your clients, and maybe how this differs from using one or the other separately.
Well, I can, and I think it's sort of, if I can just sort of back up one step, is that how I've come to understand now after like using this for 7 years or so, 5-7 years, and having had now extensive stories and using this modality. One of the things I've come to understand is what is a flower essence and what is an acupuncture point, and how do they work together, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'll be brief here, as you all know, that your readers would know, or your listeners, the flower essences are encapsulated vibrational information that's embedded in what Dr. Bach would call the flowers like angels. They're like helpers. And the flowers actually have this beautiful information of the righteousness of certain kind of emotional, mental, or even spiritual states. And so that's encapsulated in the water through the process of making the flower essence. Well, the thing that was new that I read probably about 7 years ago was that this research scientists, acupuncturists in China, had finally broken into the idea what is at the bottom of an acupuncture point.
Mm-hmm.
And what they discovered is that at the bottom of the acupuncture point are water crystals. The old traditional way of talking about acupuncture points was in Chinese medicine was called holes, wells, like water wells, that you have holes going down and then there's something water at the bottom, and that's about as far as it got in terms of the classics. So here this guy understands that these are organized water crystals, which are organized in such a way that they're dipolar, so that they're positive, negative charges. And that the meridian systems are also aligned with these dipolar things, so that if you can vibrate the acupuncture point by using a needle or moxa or all the lasers and stuff like that, you're actually setting in motion that water crystal that sends a bioelectric vibration through the whole meridian system, and then has all the pathways and how they all join together and creates this synergistic whole healing in the body. And each of the acupuncture points have different functions. Some of them operate on the emotional level, some operate on the physical, some on the mental, some operate on the physical and emotional, some operate on the spiritual and physical, blah, blah, blah. So there's all these different functions in these acupuncture points. So if you take I like thinking of the flower essences and acupuncture points as what do I want to call it? Virus, like a virus scanner. It's like using like in your computer, you get a virus scanner and you go into the computer and you're looking for where's the wrong information or how is it twisted. The
Hmm.
structure's wrong or it's twisted in such a way that it screws up your computer, right?
Right.
So the flower essences basically they go after the virus. I'm talking about a belief system, so to speak, that virus belief system, and it goes and it resonates with it and torques its energy back into its righteous state. And the acupuncture points to the same thing. So putting these two things together is that you're taking the information from the flower and you're also adding on to that all the information encapsulated in the acupuncture point. And you're sending a vibrational message from the flower essence down the well into the water crystal, and it sets it into resonance. It sets it into this vibrational, excitation, which then sends all this information through the meridian system. So you're basically using the meridian system as the way in which you download this information, as opposed to the digestive system, which is the old way of doing flower essences, under your tongue and going through the whole more coarse body to get that vibration into the body. But you're actually using an energetic force, using an energetic system. So what happens by using energetic force and using an energetic system to deliver it is that you're creating a much faster and a more thorough and a composite. It's using both the flower essence and the acupuncture point. Composite virus scan. It's like it's the most potent virus scan you could throw in there until someone discovers something else we can do with these systems. But and I've just seen people make shifts and changes profoundly quicker, and also, how do I say, more. It's deeper because it's using the two systems. I'm not sure I'm making sense. If I'm not making sense,
Oh,
ask me what.
I think this explanation is amazing. I'm completely fascinated. I think I love how you're describing it almost like a different delivery system. It's easier to picture it that way, and it's based upon this method that's existed for such a long time. Acupuncture has been shown even in studies to be very effective for many things, and then to use that system with flower essences, I think is fascinating.
Well, yes, and the acupuncture I'm working with too is the Taoist-based acupuncture, and this might have something to do that's even more, it's interesting to me. Instead of just do the basic TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the acupuncture that's basically taught in the United States, is that kind of acupuncture that's the majority of acupuncturists use, is acupuncture that came after the Maoist revolution. And because it was a Maoist revolution, they cauterized all the spiritual, emotional aspects of the acupuncture. Because in a communist state, the communist is God. The state is God. So there can't possibly be anything wrong with the state, which is God. So you can't have any problems. You can't be depressed, and you can't have anything that has to do with spirituality. For Christ's sake, the state is God. So the acupuncture we are aligning it with is the five element acupuncture, the Taoist based, which is very ancient. And what the Taoists were really concerned about was the evolution of consciousness, and how we can have different places in our consciousness that are stuck in a certain way. And the acupuncture is used to break through those blockages around our emotional life or our mental or spiritual life. So it excels in the mental, emotional, and spiritual life, which I also think the flower essences do.
Mhm.
Um, I can also do acupuncture and treat headaches and bum knees and all that kind of stuff. And I can actually use the flower essence and the floral acupuncture to work on some of the physical systems as well. But really, where it is excelling, where it really is being used, and it should be used, I think, for the utmost results, is when you have some sort of a mental, emotional, or spiritual blockage that's affecting your ability to go forward with your own evolution.
Mhm. That's great. I think that a lot of our listeners are going to be very excited about this technique if they haven't heard about it already. And we'd love to hear some suggestions from you on how to get started, how people can implement this technique.
Well, first of all, get the book. You can get it on Amazon, and it's called Floral Acupuncture. And we wrote it. It was really interesting in writing the book. We wrote it with the idea that this is going to be a self-help. That you didn't have to go to someone who was a floral acupuncturist. In other words, we wrote it in such a way, I think it reads in such a way that it gives you all the power to diagnose yourself. So I would recommend um, to someone get the book, read the introduction, and read through all the different flower essences. It's only 1 page long for each of the flower essences. It's not too long to read. And it has a graph there where to put the flower, where to actually place it on the body, and a big enough circle so you don't have to think about it. You're just doing a little pinprick. You just put the flower essence in the general area of the acupuncture point, it will find the hole, and it will go down that hole, and it will go into the acupuncture point. So I encourage people to start with themselves and to simply explore it. And one thing I'd like to add here is in the book, and I wish I had changed it. Um, Deborah is super, super sensitive to energy work. So, and I'm super sensitive, but I'm also very hardy. So I can take a lot of input. I always put these flower essences on the points without diluting them. I put them directly on.
Mm-hmm.
More is better as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And she is more of, you dilute it and, you make it so it's a more gentle. And it really is up to the individual person is whether they dilute it or not. But what I wish I had put down is, I did put it in the book, but it's sort of near the bottom. And I said, you don't need to dilute this if you are, if it feels like it's not strong enough. Anyway, so I encourage the reader or your listeners to get the book, read it, try different things out. Or if you have friends and they seem to be concerned, like, oh, I'm so depressed, and you think, oh, I need to do gorse. Well, then if you know it needs gorse, then do gorse and do it on the flower. On the acupuncture point that you see in the book, and for themselves, see what that's like.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
great.
then eventually, if you're a practitioner, um, all this is a simple leap to just then, however if you already use flower essences and you use them in a practice, now all you're doing is adding a whole other layer to it. And the book will describe sort of what the acupuncture point is, and you can understand, even from an intentional level, what is it you're actually accessing not only with the acupuncture point, with the flower essence as well.
Okay, excellent. I'm sure our listeners would want to find out if you have a favorite flower essence or a favorite combination. And, if so, what is it and how it has impacted your life?
Oh, God, yes. Probably my favorite flower essence, prior even to the floral acupuncture book, my most favorite flower essence is walnut. Um, Mainly because I've lived probably about at least 13 different lives in this lifetime. I seem to always be going through shifts and changes, and I'm always sort of outside of the box and susceptible to, if anyone wants to criticize me for not having a plan, it would be looking at my life. So I've gone through these transitions just by feeling in and being very intuitive about what do I need to do next. And walnut, which is the great transition flower essence, is just my most favorite flower essence. Then, in doing this book, when it came to walnut, and I was trying to figure out, well, what would an acupuncture point be with walnut? And, because it's transition, I thought, well, it has a lot to do with letting go and finding new values and stuff like that. So I would think about the large intestine or the lung meridian. And people who know acupuncture would understand why I would think about that. But that would be a very logical thing to think about. But it didn't work, or it didn't have any great results in that. And I got so frustrated. I finally said to Deborah, I said, let's just be quiet, and I just need to do meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into a very meditative state, and I just simply asked, where does this go? And in my mind's eye, all of a sudden I saw right on the neck the 16th point on the small intestine meridian, which is called Heavenly Window. And I went, oh my, I had never, well, what, isn't that clever? And what that means is that that particular point on the acupuncture is used when you're actually helping people make a major shift in their consciousness. It's like you're going from, it's just like going from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's like putting a person into a chrysalis.
Okay, so almost a metamorphosis of
In a
sorts.
metamorphosis state, yes, and you're
Mhm.
going through a metamorphic state. And so this is what I learned, and this is why I'm fascinated by this particular point. And so you can tell I'm actually rabidly fascinated by it. Is that the um, what happens in a chrysalis is that the caterpillar goes into the state where it has to have so much trust. I'm being anthropomorphic here, but it has to have so much trust because everything except its core essence dissolves. You have to be willing to go down to your very core essence and dissolve all the structures, all the physicality around you in that chrysalis. And then this magic thing happens and you turn into this butterfly. But so, walnut as a transition, being willing to let go of, to go through a major transition using the acupuncture point, which puts you in a chrysalis, is just one of the most profound treatments when people are going through major shifts and changes. So um, I'm number one. That's my number one flower essence. And putting it with the flower, the acupuncture point was just such a brilliant state, and I do not take credit for it. It was in my meditation.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to run out and get walnut flower
They
essence now.
should. They should. The one other thing I think that's really good is wild oat. Again, because I think a lot of people are looking for what's my purpose in life.
Hmm.
What am I here to do? And the wild oat goes on the dew 4, which is in the back of the on the body, and the acupuncture point is called gate of life, and it has it's an image of a sort of like being a person being kicked through a door. It's going through a door, and that putting the wild oat, which is to help you find your destiny, and then on that particular point,
Hmm.
it's a really profound shift in terms of really going to the core level of what is my motivation here in life? What am I here? What's my destiny? What am I here to do?
That's fantastic. I think a lot of people who are drawn to something like flower essences are in that place in their lives where they're looking for more meaning and how to integrate that into their life. So I can
Absolutely.
definitely see that being a fantastic flower essence. Okay, thank you for sharing. And I found out by looking at your website that you offer a consultation service, and I think a lot of people would be interested in that, especially if they're new to this modality, as many of us are. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more about the service that you offer and what people can expect from a session.
Well, I'm trained also as an intuitive healer or intuition. I use intuition healing, intuition medicine as a healing modality to help people with grounding chakras, to karmic contracts, all that kind of stuff. That's sort of one of the tools I have in my toolbox. People calling me up for consultation services, would basically be what I'm here to do is sort of help you get started. Uh, First of all, I think you don't need my service. Um, but if you did, it would be to help you sort of traverse what's going on in your life, what is the challenges, what are some of the belief systems in the way, how are you having any trouble manifesting the life that you want, and talking with that person to help them get clear, sort of like what the themes are. And by getting the themes clear, then what I would do is suggest, well, here's some of the flower essences that would really help you with that, and to get you started on that. And then, if necessary, we can have a next consultation after you've gone through a certain change, um, and do the next session. However, my main goal is to help you learn how to think for yourself and use the book the way you can, uh, by the way we wrote it. And then the other thing that I have to offer then again is if there seems to be some sort of karmic contract that you have in a relationship and you can't seem to get out of it, and walnut's not helping you, and so there's some other kind of blockage going on that might be useful to use my service to actually have me look at that. And give you some feedback about what's going on, and then how we might actually shift and change that energetic pattern.
Wonderful. And I love how both with the book and your consultation, you're really focusing and emphasizing the process of helping people help themselves. And I think it's very empowering. Um,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you for your insight into floral acupuncture. I think I learned a tremendous amount from our time here, and I think our readers are going to be absolutely fascinated with what they're hearing here. And I think a lot of people are going to want to learn more about you and your work. I encourage our listeners to visit the website www.floralacupuncture.com. And don't forget to pick up a copy of the book Floral Acupuncture Applying the Flower Essences of Dr. Bach to Acupuncture Sites by Deborah Creighton, certified flower essence practitioner, and Warren Bellows, licensed acupuncturist. We invite all of our blog readers to share thoughts and questions in the comments section by clicking on the title of this post. And if you have any questions for Warren, you can contact him through his website or through our blog. And we hope to have you back here again, Warren, to talk more about this.
Megan, thank you so much. I love sharing this information. It's really a fun modality. Everyone's going to love
Thank you so much, and thanks for
it. Take
joining
care,
us.
Megan.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.